Ready to start?
Yeah, let's go.
Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here, and I have Helen and Sarah today, organizers of a yarn festival in Burlington, UK, called Yarningham. Right? Did I say it right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's right.
Well, welcome to my channel. It's lovely to have you here. And the festival is taking place this year, July 13th and 14th. Can you tell me a little bit more details, like where it is and what we can find there?
So we're based at our venue's called the Uffculme Centre. It's a conference and training centre that's run by the NHS in Birmingham. So during the week it trains NHS staff and those kinds of things, and then at the weekend it's available as a to hire as a venue. It's a beautiful Victorian house that was originally built by the Cadbury family, as in Cadbury chocolate, and was then gifted to the city and then was sold to the NHS for a paltry amount from the city, so now owned by them. It's, as you said, across our festivals across 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, and we have our marketplace, our first floor designer showcase. We have a small workshop program. We're also running a yarn swap this year. We have demonstrations from our local guilds and some of our exhibitors as well. And then the most important thing at Yarningham is the cake.
Well, let's talk about the cake because I got like all very interested in the cake part because it
Yeah.
says that it's homemade cake. Who makes the cake?
So this year, we are working with a lady called Lucy who runs something called Lil's Parlour, and it was a pay as you feel bakery set up not far from where we're based here, and her kind of ethos is that everybody should be able to have really nice cake. And this is something that we can definitely get behind. So she runs the bakery, which is and a it's not a food bank, she calls it a food larder, but it's a place where you could go where you can get food at really cheap prices, much cheaper than the supermarket, for those on low incomes, those who are struggling, as so many people are these days. And then she goes out and about into kind of like markets and farmers markets and that kind of thing, and runs cake stalls. All the profits from that go back into whether it's the larder or the bakery, or she also runs kind of like food-based workshops a lot with kids, adults, older people, those kinds of things. And a lot of it's about kind of like education around food, demystifying lots of things, getting people to, like, kids to have hands-on experience of cooking, that kind of stuff. So she will be running our cake stall for us, and the girl can bake. That's all I can say. She's really, really, really good baker, and it's really good for us to be able to give someone like her space within Yarningham, because it's like a win-win, which is what we're really all about here. So we get delicious cake that our audience can buy. She gets to sell cake and make a bit of money that then goes back into her into the larger and into all of the workshops, and everybody wins. It's kind of a perfect scenario for us.
Well, you have a little bit of an unusual story as to how this festival first started. Can you share it with my viewers?
We never intended to start a yarn festival. That wasn't what we wanted to do. We actually wanted to open a yarn shop. And originally we thought it was going to be a permanent shop, and then it quickly became a pop-up shop because of various other factors. And then after working with Helen for like 6 months or something of like trying to set up the shop, writing a business plan, looking at venues, looking at potential shop units, it was kind of there's just no way we're going to be able to raise enough money to kind of get this off the ground. So we've done quite a lot of work around setting up the shop, and it was kind of how can we use that work that we've already done? How do we not lose it, essentially? So then the idea came that a festival is like a really small pop-up shop over a very short amount of time. So we can, a lot of the research that we've done would still be relevant. And so, yeah, that's how Yarningham came about.
I mean, when we talk about like really short pop-up shop, a lot of work goes into the preparation for a festival.
Yeah, just because it only happens for a couple of days, the amount of things that you need to do are pretty much the same if you were going to open a permanent shop. But obviously we change it every Yarningham, so it's not the same exhibitors or the same stockists or whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of work. It's not just a invite some people and get a couple of tables. There's lots of, really boring logistical stuff, insurance applications, license applications,
lots of admin.
Lots of quite boring admin. It's not and not glamorous either in any way, shape, or form.
How do you divide responsibilities? How do you decide who is best at what?
Mostly we do what we're better at each. We've sort of worked out over the last few years what our strengths are, and then we just do that. And it seems to work for us.
Yeah, it's been quite natural, I think, in that way. We've both got quite different backgrounds, so quite different skill sets. And that seems to have worked out quite well between us.
I'll elaborate on that. I want to know who is doing what.
Well, you tell us what you want to know, and I'll say which one of us it is, because it's.
Well, tell me about your background. Like, where did you? What kind of skill sets did you bring to the table?
So I worked in events for years and worked freelance at lots of festivals, actually, not yarn festivals, but music festivals, film festivals, that kind of thing. And then also I've got a background in sewing. So I worked in a wardrobe department for a ballet company, professional ballet company, for like nearly 10 years. So that kind of world of events is kind of been I suppose it's the overarching thing that kind of ties everything together of what I've been doing over the years.
I have a family, so I've just had my family I have 9 children. So
wow.
I'm a stay-at-home mum for a long time. So I suppose that brings me the skills of managing all of that. I also used to do voluntary work as a treasurer for a local charity. So I kind of bring that to it as well. And I used to do admin for and email newsletters for the local guild, the Knitting and Crochet Guild. I do all the newsletters. So that's something that I can do.
Right. When do you start preparing for the festival? Like this year, it's July. When did you start preparing for this festival? And like what kind of steps go into the preparation?
We usually take August off, don't we?
Mm.
And then we sort of go back into it in September.
So it's pretty much a year to put it together. Part of that is, we're a small team. It's Helen and I who work on it mostly, and then with our other co-founders, Lil and V, kind of chipping in at various points. But it's the majority of it is both Helen and myself. So there's only the two of us. So it takes quite a long, it takes a longer time because there's not that many people. But things like, I suppose now we've got quite a good system of, we've been doing this a little while, so we've got our kind of things. But yeah, we would say, for instance, the last festival would have finished. We would have most of August off as a kind of break, essentially, and to, I don't know, reacquaint yourself with your sofa and, remember what your house looks like and all of that kind of stuff. And then in September, we would start looking at the evaluation of the previous previous event. And then that feeds into whether it's our application process, or as it is for this Yarningham, we've invited all of our exhibitors and participants, which is kind of what we did in the first year. That would take us, that's kind of like how long is a piece of string, because I don't know whether you've ever tried to get kind of like 40 people to do something. Can take, it can take 10 years to to put that together. And then from that, from the basis of who's coming to either exhibit or in the showcase or for our workshops, that then sets the tone for what happens after those people have either been selected or accepted invitations. Then it gets into the like super boring admin stuff of like contracting, invoicing, budget reconciliation, getting the licenses sorted, getting the insurance sorted. There's a lot of kind of back and forth with that group of exhibitors. And if you kind of think everything, they have to do everything once, we have to do everything multiplied by the number of exhibitors and things that we have. So things of like writing the same, essentially, even something as simple as like the deposit invoices are, can take half a day because you've got to do 50 of them, whereas they've only got to pay one invoice, we've got to kind of generate and send 50. So yeah, it can be it's a long slog. I'm not sure we could I'm not sure we could do it any faster if we had more people, actually. I'm not sure that would necessarily truncate the timeline that much. Having worked at other festivals where there are bigger teams, it still takes that long. There's no real shortcuts in the kind of events world at that point.
You mentioned somewhere that your goal is to bring at least 50% of new vendors, and whether they're brand new to the business or new to your festival, but you want to bring new people. Do you think that makes it riskier business for you? Because you don't know those 50% of vendors. You don't know if they're going to come through. You don't know if they're capable of vending at the level that you want them to vend.
I think part of that is that yes, all of that is true. But then we would hope that kind of the way that we set up a lot of our admin stuff and the way that we communicate with our exhibitors and our designers makes it possible for those people to kind of get up to the level that they need to. I think, yes, it's risky, but I think that's one of the key things about Yarningham was that we set that out from the get-go. This was something we purposely set out to do, and that is a kind of a cornerstone of what Yarningham is, that it's not about replicating something that happened before. We're not particularly interested in just doing the same show over and over again. There are other shows that do that much better than we ever could, and that we have no real interest in that either. I think I'm speaking for myself now. I really shouldn't lump Helen in with this bit, but I've never been interested in any of my kind of creative things of doing something once and then to keep doing that over and over again, which sounds quite odd as someone who knits and makes. That's literally what knitting and making is. But it's always about the subtle differences between the last one or the one before, and that something like making sure that the marketplace and that the designer showcase are always fresh and interesting is really quite key to what Yarningham is and what Yarningham's about.
When you think back about the first time you did it, how did it change? Like, how did you two change? How did the whole field change? Is it easier or is it more difficult every year to reinvent yourself?
I'm not sure it's not that it's easier or harder. I don't think that's not it. In some ways it's not the right question because it's
I think we were quite naive the first year.
yeah, I mean, like with everything that when you start out, you're kind of like, oh yeah, it's gonna be fine. And you know, I've done a festival, I've done lots of festivals before. I think that learning curve was really steep, that first one. But I think what it then gives you is when you've been able to have a successful show, the first one, that then gives you the impetus for the next ones. I don't think it's not that it gets easier or even that it gets harder, because each one is different. They're kind of quite hard to compare. So
I suppose some aspects get easier because you know what you're doing, in terms of we know what we're doing and when we're doing it, whereas the first time it was all a bit hit and miss.
yeah.
Because you're learning while you do it, especially for me, because I didn't have that background in events that Sarah has. So
I read the blog from 2023 and it sounded almost bitter that you were like sounded like you were disappointed because you basically said that it looks like it's pretty obvious that there is no interest in this festival. Tell me that story. Like how did you feel at that time that you had to not do the festival?
I think 2022 was a really difficult year for Yarningham as a festival. You know, there were lots of factors that
yeah, I think coming back after
COVID was, you know, has been really difficult. And I think any events that were before COVID that then have had to kind of transition through that pandemic and then kind of come back. I think that what was really quite disappointing, I suppose, and what was really quite kind of was that we get a lot of anecdotal stuff or also the impression that, you know, Yarningham's an important festival because of the makeup of the people who put it together, and then also because of you know, some of the rules that we've put upon ourselves to put the Yarn Festival together. So on one hand, we have lots of people telling us it's really important that there's a black-led festival in the UK, and it's really important that there's a festival where people who are new and emerging can come and kind of start their yarn journey, for want of a better word. So it's kind of like, how can we be really important and yet no one comes to the festival, or we get like really, really bad audience figures? And then also the thing that there's a lot of, you said it at the start actually, and I was kind of chuckling to myself of, I suppose, because for lots of people, knitting is their hobby, is something that they do to unwind or, you know, relax, or it's a pleasurable activity for them. But that kind of, whether it's professionalism or just like not treating it like it's just a hobby, isn't there with some people. So we found that this is kind of stuff that is quite difficult to say without sounding like you're being a not very nice person for what, but that there's a lot of unprofessionalism in our industry, and there's a lot of people who get very good benefits out of even though the fact that they're not very professional. And I don't mean that they're bad people. That's not what I'm saying. Saying that they're not being, that in, you know, if they were if maybe this was their main source of income, they would have a different attitude. And then also the kind of, oh well, it's all just fine because, you know, we're just all here for the knitting or for the yarn or whatever. It's kind of like, well, no, actually, you've paid money. We've spent the last, you know, 6 months promoting this show, and, you know, for whatever reason, certain people haven't, you know, so a big percentage of people haven't done their side of the bargain. And that's always really disappointing when you've set out quite clearly what it is and what you want from people and what that two-way relationship should be. You do your side of the bargain, you keep your side of the contract, and they don't keep theirs.
Do you think it's because you're coming from like this industry of putting together festivals in different kind of industries that it's more frustrating for you?
I think there's always a bit of apathy with festivals, and there's always the slight kind of disconnect from those people who put on the festival, so the organisers and those people that take part in the festival, whether that's as performer or exhibitors in our case, and then another, it's kind of like a triangle. There's kind of the organizer side, there's people who take part in the festival, and then there's kind of the audience side as well. And if all those three things aren't particularly well aligned, or if for whatever reason one side of the triangle just isn't kind of pulling their weight, then the whole thing will collapse. And our structure, the way that we set up the festival and the way that we operate the festival, means that when that falls, everything fails. We said earlier about working with Lucy from Lil's Parlour, that it's a win-win situation, that she does her side of it, she wins, we do our side of it, we win, everybody wins. That is basically the Yarningham scenario. If someone doesn't do their side of it, they might still win, but we will lose. Right. And that's kind of what that is basically what happened in 2022. Thank you. In 22, that if you don't, I don't know, there are lots of ways of saying it, but yeah, basically lots of people didn't pull their weight. We, as we always do, did our side of the bargain, not just kind of adequately, but always to the best of our abilities. And if other people aren't doing that, then we do lose. So the way it's set up is that all of those people need to do their little bits, otherwise it just doesn't work.
Well, how did you pull yourself from that disappointment and decided to do festival in 2024?
You go. Is it what? It's her fault.
It's my fault. Well, I said that we shouldn't just sort of whimper away into a corner. We should, if we're not going to do it anymore, we should do one last and kind of go out with a bang, if you like. Mm. So, yeah, this year is very much, we will see how it goes.
Yeah, I think.
And then after that, we will decide whether or not Yarningham will carry on or not.
It's very much up in the air, and some of that's like a hangover from COVID as well. I mean, I'm sure you, Arena, have been to less shows over the last 2 years than you maybe had in, say, like 2017, 2018, 2019. I think that people's outlooks have changed and have changed forever. The landscape is not the same. So we'll just see. I think it's all very much of a how long is a piece of string, which is a good adage for knitters.
Well, when you think about COVID, there was a lot of negative, but yes, the one positive thing about it was that because people were stuck at home and because Zoom was available and YouTube is available with all the tutorials, it created the whole new generation of crafters, basically, during those months that they were stuck at home. Do you think they're gonna stick with us? Do you think they're gonna be knitters for life now or crafters for life? Or do you think it's like now that people are back to being in person, back to work, it's going to dissipate again?
Probably. I think there will be a percentage that will stick with it.
Definitely. I think, like anything, if you've caught the bug of knitting or crochet or whatever, then you've caught the bug. Whether you do it all the time or not is kind of inconsequential. I think there will be people who obviously, like you say, had lots of time on their hands, quite literally, and needed something to do, and now they have less time on their hands. They're not, they've kind of you know, the needles go back into whichever box or sit languishing wherever they are. But I think there's definitely people who will then just stick with it, you know, and kind of, you know, then start coming, you know, hopefully they'll be coming to Yarningham or to other shows or engaging in that way. I think it's really hard, you know, that shift from online to in person is a really difficult shift for some people, you know, that safety and whatever, safety and reassurance of at home, it's familiar, on your own terms, you know, at any time of the day or night, you know, as the mood takes you, kind of thing, is quite a different scenario to, you need to be here at this, on this day, at this exact place, at this exact time. You know, it's a completely different offer, but they're not, as in, I like to do both. So do lots of other people.
Let's talk about the vendor selection, because I mean, besides the fact that you're making your life more complicated by deciding for yourself that 50% of them gonna be new people, right? It's also have to be the balance of different mix, right? Like there has to be not just the same yarn dyers, you have to have the bag makers and accessory makers and what have you. How do you decide? How, like, tell me that process.
Yeah, it's it's not a trade secret, but as in, that's kind of what part of our job is as organisers of a festival, organisers of the Yarn Festival, is to be aware and to keep yourself abreast of what is going on in the yarn industry. So, you know, following people online, looking at other people's, you know, looking at other shows, you know, kind of keeping abreast with what other people are doing. That's a kind of a big part of our job, and it's one of Helen's absolute skills. Is she's really good at not keeping tabs. That sounds like she's like the police or something. She's not that, but the keeping aware of what's kind of going on and what the kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say trends, because I don't think we're kind of trend led, but just of how things are shifting or how things are changing. So like you say, you know, COVID has really changed, say, how people might learn skills. You know, now that there's so much content online, whether it's free or behind a paywall, where you can access it at any time, as many times as you like, you know, sat in your gym jams on the sofa, or, you know, on the bus on the way to work, whatever it is, you can do it as you feel. So, you know, certain things have changed in that respect. And then also like you say, lots of people took up, whether it's knitting, crochet, but also lots of people took up yarn dyeing, making bags, making accessories. So there is like a whole wave of new people that we kind of have to keep going out and looking for. And that's the point, is we're always on the hunt. There's never, you know, it doesn't matter where we are, what we're doing. Yarningham is always somewhere at the front, definitely, of my mind, of like what we're always looking for, that new yarn dyer, that new person who dyes fleeces, or that new accessories maker, or someone who's diversified what they already do into one of those things. That's, you know, that's kind of the main part of our job. You know, there's all the boring admin side and logistics and whatever, but most of our job is trying to find these people and ruthlessly hunting for them.
Well, Helen, tell me, who are you most excited from whoever is coming to on the 2024? Who did you hunt that you are so proud of?
There are a couple of. Oh, I don't know. I think this is where Helen. Where Helen goes, well, I can't pick one of my favourite children. That's just unfair to the other eight. There's lots of people that we're really proud of having. I think there's lots of people who it seems to be that we can tempt people who don't normally do shows to come and do Yarningham. I don't know how we do that. Maybe Helen bribes them with really good cake. I'm not sure, but just it seems that we can persuade people who've, you know, she's not coming this year, but there's a lady, Elaine, who dies under the name Fab Funky Fibers. She's an incredible dyer, incredible dyer. She has never done, as I'm pretty sure, she's never done any other show other than Yarningham. She's the only one she's done. The first year we did it was the first year she came to us, and then every time she's been back, but she's never done any other show. And it's not even, she's based quite far away from us. It's quite a church, you know, it's a little bit of a trek for her to get to Birmingham. So it's not even like it's the most convenient show for her to do. But for some reason, we're her yarn show of choice. Thanks, Elaine, if you're watching. But yeah, that's always been really nice to be able to kind of tempt people who wouldn't normally come. That's always quite a coup. And then I suppose we're just really proud of the mix that we're able to bring, and also, like you say, 50% new to us every year, so that it's fresh and new for our audience every year. You know, it's one of the things we're really not interested in, just replicating the same marketplace over and over again.
Right. Let's talk about your audience. How does that grow, and how do you promote the festival?
So we do a lot of social media, and we have an email list that we send out to. Well, that's been growing quite nicely, actually, the email list.
She's very good at it. Yeah. I think we also, you know, it's quite hard to get like press or even things like this are quite difficult to get. I think you know, spend a lot, you know, that's one of the kind of boring admin jobs, is spend a lot of time sending out press releases, sending out information about the festival, trying to get editors or podcasters or whatever kind of hooked on what we're doing and them interested in what we're doing. But you know, so it's a lot of those times it seems as if some years it works really well and some years it really doesn't work very well. This year it seems to be going quite well, actually. But this year we're also working with a PR person who's really helping us to kind of basically to open doors. There seems to be, it's quite hard to get to certain parts of the industry, that they're seemingly quite closed and very much kind of who you know rather than what you know or what you've got. So you being able to use somebody else's address book has been really good actually. And actually, I think after the disappointment of 2022, we sent out quite a lot of kind of emails to people that we know who have very good address books, and kind of saying, look, we really need help. We really need your support. We really need you to like introduce us to other people. We really need you to like spread the word about these things. And luckily, quite a few of them have actually done that. But it's been, you know, that's been a constant kind of, so can we have this? Can we have this? You know, that is always ongoing. And I'm sure anybody who works in like press, PR, marketing will tell you, you can do the same thing over and over again with very different results, because the time is slightly different, or you know, or it happens that somebody sees something and this is the year that they're actually really interested in festivals, so you'll get a call back or you'll get a message back that actually you've been sending that same person press releases for like 6 years and they, you know, you've not heard a peep out of them before then. So it's very much, oh, what's the word? It's not, yeah, there are no guarantees with with promotion. You can do the best promotion, you can have the best content, you can have, you know, a fabulous program like we do, and no one's seemingly interested.
Let's talk about the day of the festival, the first day, like before the doors open. Feel like, are you in panic mode? Are you super excited? Is that the busiest day, or the busiest days are the days prior to that?
I think the Friday is the busiest day, the day before, which is basically us, as in Sarah and I, crawling about on the floor, marking out the stand spaces.
With a stick, we have a stick.
We have a measuring square.
We have a measuring square. It's not completely. It's not just two idiots rolling around on the floor. There is some method to our madness. Yeah, I would say that week before the show is completely and utterly manic, and it doesn't matter. And that's true of all events, I think. It doesn't matter how long you've had to plan in the lead up to it. That final week is when all of your best laid plans have to be thrown out of the window, and you have to come up with new plans. But you've only got 3 days to do it, and you've got 700 other things on your to-do list to do at the same time. And then you've got exhibitors who've, I don't know, car trouble, or so-and-so is meant to be driving, but they're not driving anymore, or people getting stuck on the motorway for hours behind accidents, or we've had people's vehicles break down, you know, so they're stranded somewhere, you know, kind of however far from our venue. Yeah, that week before, it's just reminding me of how tired we are.
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel like you're coming closer to the day of this year's festival and there is still so much to do, or you feel like you're on good path?
There are 88 days to go until the festival, and there is a lot. There's always a lot to do.
Yeah.
There's always a lot to do. I think it's kind of probably where we shoot ourselves in the foot, is that we're kind of obsessed by detail. Well, I'm obsessed by detail. That's kind of what I really, really wanted to bring to Yarningham, is that there are lots of, and this is just festivals generally, that are quite a bit scant on the details, I suppose. And that's what we really pride ourselves on, crossing all of the T's and dotting all of the I's. And it's exhausting, but then when it comes to fruition, it's kind of like, and that's the face I do.
It's all worth it when it works properly. Yeah.
There's no greater feeling than that, actually.
Do you ever question yourself and think, maybe we should have just opened that yarn store with all the work that goes into the festival?
No way. No way. We actually ran in a kind of weird full circle moment. We actually got offered a pop-up shop at the end of last year here in Birmingham, which we ran for 4 weeks. And at the end of it, we were like, oh yeah, we'll just do the festival. That'd be so much easier.
It's very, very hard work running a shop.
Yeah, like anyone who's got a local yarn store, like hats off to you guys. It's constant. I mean, there's very little reprise, and that thing of always being, you're always, you know, if you're in the shop, you're always on. There is no respite in a shop. You know, even when there are no customers in there, there's other stuff to be doing. There's, you know, planning to be done, or thinking about how you could rearrange things, or you know, which things aren't selling, why aren't they selling, why is this doing well, why isn't that doing well, do we need to change stuff, how can we change things? That is a constant battle, I think, if you're in a shop. Whereas we get a bit of respite from that, because we get some time off in August, which you would, I mean, that's the other point as well, is where do you take your time off? how do you take your time off? You know, a shop needs, you know, people like things to be highly
Right.
consistent. Just, yeah.
Well, where can people find more information about the festival, all the details about it?
So on our website, www.yarningham.co.uk, there's a whole page for this year's festival. There's more information about us, a bit of the store, a bit of background. Contact us, you know, follow us on our social media channels. You know, all the standard stuff, really. Join our email list, follow us on Instagram, join the Facebook group, look us up online.
I'm going to put all this contact information for you in the description of this video. So if you guys want to visit the festival, it's again going to take place July 13th and 14th of this year. And you can email for any other questions. Thank you so much for sharing your story with my viewers and being my guest today. It was lovely to get to know you.
Thanks, Irina. Thanks for having us.
Thank you both.